Hey guys, welcome back. I have Coach Whitney Reese with me again today. And the question that I had in my mind was what are some of the key moments that Whitney has had that have helped define her regardless of the consequences that came from them? And I think that, when I was talking with Whitney before, I kind of asked this question in different ways, but ultimately I think that's where the really interesting story lies. So Whitney, can you maybe tell us a story about how something left that indelible mark on you, and then maybe kind of tell us what the consequences, good and bad, from that moment were?
Yeah, I've got a couple. The one that stands out the most to me happened in 2011 at the time the South Central Regional, which was hosted outside here in Texas. Um, the year before that, I had gone to the CrossFit Games, and 2011, that entire year was okay. I know I belong at the games. Now it's my year to really succeed and do well, is kind of how that entire year was structured. And I was definitely prepared for that. And the entire weekend, I would say, was a roller coaster. Like the first event got me jazzed because it was an outdoor run, which was soccer. I was like, cool, you give me somebody to run after, I'm going to run. In my head, you have a ball and that ball is mine. So, there definitely were some pluses. And true to Texas, it was so hot that outdoor bars, every single person in the field had to deal with burned hands. One of the events earlier in that weekend, I think it was the hundreds, because I vividly remember while doing, I think it was pull-ups, I remember feeling a squish and being like,
Mm.
I was like, what is that? And dropped down, looked at my hand. I was like, oh, my skin is gone. The bar was so hot, it had burned, blistered, popped. And I was like, all right, moving on. Everybody's got to deal with this. And then kettlebell swings, my hands were so burned. I tried grabbing a towel to do a kettlebell swing and full on, like, with the towel, threw it backwards. And actually have a mid-moment picture that my wife took that I'm actually in the middle of it. I'm laughing because of the idiot moment of like, I can swing this bell with this towel and it's not going to hit me in the head, and didn't succeed. And so I'm just like, whatever. And consequence of the weekend is the actually decision for who took first, second, third, and fourth came down to the absolute last workout, and we were all within a few points of each other. It was all Carrie Kipler had to do was come in somewhere in the top 5 and she would go on. That part was at least known. The rest was a maybe on Lisa Teal, and then Lindsay Smith and we were within a point of each other. So that last event, it had to be that I came in either first or second for me to go on to the games. And so to be prepared for the workout, because it had toe to bars right before an overhead plate lunge walk and then a sprint to the finish. And I remember my wife took yard gloves and underneath them taped them around my wrists so I couldn't pull them off, because I was notorious for in the heat of the moment, I don't like wearing grips. I have small hands, and so when I had grips or gloves, if I started to fatigue, I would get mad and I would pull whatever I had off my hands off. So I had these black and blue gloves, and they're taped like, I think almost to my elbow, so I couldn't get them off. And I'd made it to the toe to bar, and I'm neck and neck with Carrie, Lisa, Lindsay, and on the same bar, but to the right of me is Candice Ruiz, now Candice Wagner. And I'm starting to fatigue, and I'm slowing down on my toe to bars. And I hear the loudest thud I've ever heard come from right next to me. And I turn and look, and Candace, because of her hands, had it fully slipped off the bar and she had landed flat on her back on the asphalt. And doing what is my nature, I stopped entirely. Turned, helped pick her up, gave her like a come on bud slap on the butt, and I was like, come on, it's you and me on this bar, we're gonna get through this damn thing and we're gonna finish, and then you know what, in the ice bath afterwards we're gonna have a margarita because the weekend is done. And she stood up, she was like, I'm okay, and we both started going back at it again. And in hindsight, the amount of time I took to do that resulted in me coming in fourth by 1 point. I picked up my pace after she got back on the bar, but it was at the cost of coming in with a photo finish tie with Lindsay. And the only way I was going to go on is I had to beat her. Literally, I had to come in a foot length in front of her. And I did not. So I didn't go on. And to this day, I honestly wouldn't go back and change it for a second. I've thought about it for years of what would the difference have been if I just let her stay on the ground and I just did my thing and focused with laser vision on my goal. But in reality, even though my goal was to go to the CrossFit Games, I would never change who I am as a person. And that's been the essence of everything I do as a coach, and everything I do in physical therapy is, gosh, half my patients, even if they said, hey, Whit, it's cold outside and I don't have a sweater, I'd probably give them my own sweater and be like, here, I'll go get another. I don't regret it at all. I think it gave me some drive for the next year to be like, you know what? I deserve to be there. I've earned it and I've put in the work, and I definitely know that I'm capable. But I think I would have hated myself as a person probably for eternity if all I did was just continue to push to finish before everybody else.
Did you, in the moment, feel like you made the right decision?
There was no thought involved into it whatsoever.
Sorry, I mean, after you realized you were fourth, did you think that you made the right call?
I ate myself up for quite a while after that. I really did. Especially like walking off the competition floor. There's still two pictures that I keep next to my desk upstairs, and one of them is the photo finish tie. It is. And then one of them is walking off the competition floor. My coach managed to get a picture of Lindsay and I kind of arm on arm, waist on waist, walking off the floor together, both heads down. And what she was telling me in that moment is she was like, I had to kill myself to beat you on that workout. And so I look at those two side by side and I'm like, was I willing to kill myself to get to that finish line? Definitely. Was I willing to do it at the cost of ignoring what happened next to me? Never. So once I realized that, I kept those two always in view of like, honor that value, honor that essence, because you lose a little piece of yourself when you don't. And that's a piece that I'm okay with having not given away.
And do you feel like because of that, you now attempt to live that even more?
I think it's become a big value for me, that there's times in life that we all make compromises, and there's always an ask that comes along with that. I think the thing I learned from that is the price you pay for that ask and the thing you're willing to compromise or give of yourself to achieve it. The future you should never regret the past you. So I don't want my future self to hate my current self because of a decision I made. And that's been a very ingrained value for me. It's something I talk to my injured athletes about in rehab, both as a coach and as a therapist, is the decisions you make now as an athlete, even when you're injured and trying to recover today, in 5 years, your future self, are they going to look back and wish that they sat you down today and said, do the work and honor the process and honor yourself today so that you can be the person you want to be in 5 years? I'm thankful that I chose that decision at the time, and I've had a lot of older patients that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s actually have told me very similar things about their past of, if I could go back and I could have that conversation with my 20-year-old self, I would have done some things differently. I think we all have that, like 1 or 2 things that we've done like that.
I have 3 or 4.
Yeah. I probably have a handful based on the number of surgeries I've had. But the decisions themselves, there's not one that I take that eats at my soul. So I think that's where it becomes a problem, is when it really eats at you. That's when you probably made the wrong decision.
Interesting. And for you to say that, having thought about it for years after the fact, says a lot. So you use the word eternity as compared to a couple of years, and sometimes I think we have to recognize that things can hurt, and they can hurt for a couple of years, but that doesn't make it the wrong decision.
Yeah.
It's patience on that's such an interesting thing. Whitney, as always, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that. That was a really awesome story. So I appreciate that. All right, guys, we will see you next time. See ya.